Well, welcome back to Realman Speaks. Today I want to talk to you and share with you some of my own personal experiences in regards to divorce. Kind of a crazy, strange thing, that word, but I'm now happily remarried, and I just want to cover off some thoughts that I think if I had known, if I'd had this advice in the very beginning of my separation and divorce, I think I would have negotiated that experience a lot better. So I'll carry on. Hopefully you'll find this helpful. Well, welcome in. This is Brent. I'm your host. The Realman.org.nz website is up and live. And if you need any assistance, please send me an email, info@realman.org.nz. Yes, it's a New Zealand site. And perhaps Kiwis have a better perspective being so remote from the globe, from bigger nations. However, we possibly have an interesting point of view. So I urge you to just bear with me. This is all new, this podcasting thing. But whilst wherever you are, you could be in your car, you could be at work, you might even be on your couch just wondering, what about this divorce stuff? Well, I want to talk to you about my experience. I don't have all the answers, but I do feel to share with you some of the experience so that it may be less painful. Where to start? Well, back in 2013, I guess I'd been married close to 11, 12 years. My ex-wife at the time, we'd had 3 children. She had remarried and had a young fella, about 3. And so I adopted him, and we had a son. And then later on, we decided to try and have a daughter. So it's our 3 kids, living in a major city in New Zealand. We generally, I can only say it wasn't a great marriage. It was fraught with difficulty, but it had potential. So there was the possibility of it ending, but that was never really discussed, and I don't want to go into cause and effect and where I went wrong or how it could have been fixed. I want to focus on the after effects. So historically, the housing bubble, I think there's been a global housing bubble which has elevated prices and made housing unaffordable, and that's the Kiwi dream here in New Zealand, that everyone owns their own home. It's been like that forever, and that's just been, I guess in some ways, it's been blown out of the water by mass migration. We have not had illegal immigration or any of that, but we've just had an influx of people with money able to saturate and create huge demand for housing. So I guess my wife had aspirations, and she decided that she wanted to move about 3 hours away from our city, and our youngest, she was about to start school at 5, and it just sort of the transition to a smaller town with better schooling, and to buy a home with a lot of property, a bigger property. So we got on the ladder, we bought this home. So I was driving every weekend to and fro for a whole year. That first year seemed to work okay, 2013. Our daughter starts school in the same school as both of our sons. They were meeting and making friends. We were locked into a church, and everything was going great. And then 2014, things didn't go so good because I couldn't find any work further north, and I had this amazing job where I was, it alleviated her having to work full-time or work at all. So that distance, I think, was the start of the separation. I want to end there as as part of the history of how a divorce came about. But right now, if you're having to face either separation or divorce is at the door, I want to tell you that right now that you'll get through this. A lot of guys need to hear this. It's painful. And the shock and the realization that there is going to be a finite sort of ending to something that you've been really committed to. Yes, rightly or wrongly, in my case, I felt very hard done by because I'd been so faithful to this dream of my ex-wife, how she would have the home, that she would be at home for the children, and that they would have better schooling, less dense area, safer, a great community. And ironically, our marriage basically came to an end. And that was the full stop, the finite ending for me. There was no negotiation about, do we get counselling? Do we do this? How do we fix it? It was just, it's over, it's done. Now, little did I know that she had options. She'd met someone and eventually remarried. But that's beside the point. So, here we are. 4 or 5 years later, I've recently remarried. And I've learned a few things. So, believe in me when I say to you, that the things will get better, that I honestly believe that. I think in addressing the separation and the divorce, I kind of approached the whole matter in a business-like fashion. So primarily what was on my mind was settling the estate. How are we going to separate, who owned what? And I did in the back of my mind have, a concern about the kids. And that's that dynamic of trying to tell your children, look, mum and dad are splitting up for good, was hard enough, let alone knowing that things that I'd been committed to, that I'd been working for, that I had been striving for, were out of my control. One of the great lessons that helped me understand, and honestly it may be something you've not thought of, but a relationship is between two people. Naturally, when a divorce happens, you're going to, especially for guys, they're going to say, look, I failed, and start to take on the blame. And what I want to tell you is that in the very instance, and if you revisit this and want to soak in some of the wisdom that I've grasped, is that a relationship is between two entities. And whatever happens, whether one decides, I don't want to be in this anymore, or one says, I want to stay committed, that's a decision that you cannot manipulate. That's the basis of a trusting, healthy relationship, because you want the buy-in of the other partner. So in trying to wrap this into one succinct statement, it's not your fault. If that person has decided to end this relationship, they've made that decision aside from your wants, your aspirations, and your sense that I'm married based on a contract, based on a covenant. So if you're feeling like, well, I'm beating myself up here, just note that as you pull back from the emotion, that someone else has made this decision, and that respecting it will help you understand that divorce is about two parties. It's not about the one party making the mistake, and therefore this has to end. Because many people make mistakes, right? Some end up sleeping around, some become bad partners, bad husbands, bad wives. But in the end, the other party, I guess, who's upholding the marriage or wasn't in the wrong, still has a choice. Do I want to stay in it? Do I want to work it through till it gets better, and then I can make a decision. So keep that in mind. Now, I was talking earlier about the mindset that I had. Probably a lot of guys would think that, okay, so how is this going to work? Apart from all the emotion, there's the issue of custody of children, access to children, and the estate. Now, what I want to say first off is I made a pretty big mistake. Although I delayed matters, I tried to get this division happening. Okay, we're getting on with this divorce. If there's no way forward, and I spent a whole year. Let me tell you, I spent a whole year trying to get back to my wife, to try to see reason, tried to reason with her, tried to convince her, tried to say no, this will hurt our children, and I was deeply feeling rejected. I was mourning. I was a mess. 8 months I had a breakdown, but I was still working, still functioning, but just ripped apart. So I was trying to get to a place of safety. By the way, if you're in that place right now, I want to tell you that God loves you. Yes, the living God, the God that I know, reached down and he held me close and kept me together. Yeah, okay, so I went to the fringe. Was I drinking a lot? No. Was I smoking drugs? No. Was I sleeping around? Not at all. None of that. But I was deeply feeling rejected and very hurt. So I wasn't exactly living a great life. What I want to say is you need to wait. You know, they say time heals all things. I think time is a great thing. Although you want to resolve, you know, getting the estate, getting all the finances sorted, although you want to resolve that as quickly as possible, it's better to wait. Now, I wanted to settle the house. And yes, I made concessions that eventually involved me losing a great deposit. Because if I had waited on selling the home a year later, then I would have been able to afford, when we divided things up, then I would have had this great deposit to get into my own home, let alone my ex-wife being able to buy it off me at a reduced price. Why? Because housing prices went up. So there was a mistake right there that I wanted to settle because I wanted things to be separated and sorted out. I needed to wait. What was the most pressing issue that I didn't really come to terms with at the time? The most pressing issue was, and if you have children, they are the priority. So I suggest that you just lay aside the finance issue, lay that aside. Yes, you've got to work out the day-to-day, but those big decisions, and they will tell you this, counsellors, whoever will tell you this, don't make big decisions whilst you're in that emotional state, grieving, mourning. You're not going to make a great decision. And that actually boils down to new relationships. Don't intend to sleep around. Don't try and fix it with drugs or sex. It's emptiness. That is not the way to resolve this. And I say, especially to men, I say to you guys, you need to man up. You need to man up and stop looking around for a fix. The best thing that I ever did was I went and got counselling. And I stayed in counselling for 2 years. I went weekly. My counsellor was a very experienced older lady. She actually didn't have all the answers for me. In fact, 2.5 years later, discovered a book which actually gave me the answers. But the fact that I went regularly to somebody where I could soundboard my issues, my sense of grief, where I could throw ideas and have somebody relay them back to me in a sane fashion. And she used to say this to me: you are a decent person. You're a decent person. You're a decent person. And because you don't believe it, I will believe it for you. So whenever you come here, I'm always believing that you're going to grasp this message that you're a decent person. Divorce is designed to destroy, and it will destroy men especially. Why? Because the law kind of is geared around supporting mother and supporting children. So naturally, mother gets more rights to the children in terms of custody, in terms of that whole deal. And also that you can't just say, okay, I'm kicking you out of home and I'm having the kids. You can't do that. And so therefore, naturally, guys will kind of bend and want to protect and want to make sure the family's intact. But hey, let me tell you, the other thing I learnt was that when someone wants out of a relationship, they will deny any sense of fairness or empathy or any of that. So you're actually dealing with now not the same person. You're dealing with somebody who was on a mission. And in my experience, my ex-wife's mission was to get as much out of this divorce, as much as she could, with as little to offer. So I was on a hiding to nothing. So I want to tell you right here and now, if you're in for the long haul, you need to knuckle down with some support, because it does get ugly. There are no rules, and you'll hear stories and you'll be thinking, but I've not done this before. What books do I read? Who do I talk to? How does all that work? There's nothing on the net that really appears to be my situation. What I want to tell you is, one, my experience, you need to find your team of supporters who are going to go the extra mile. Don't wear out your friends. That's what a counsellor's for. If you can't afford a counsellor, make sure that you make it a priority and get someone's trust that will actually be a soundboard for you, that will say, yep, that's good, that's shitty thinking, or whatever. There are resources available for people that don't have funding to go to counselling. Look them up, go seek them out, and you'll be surprised, because support's there. So in talking about, in summarising, what I've been talking about, I've tried to relay this theme of waiting for the storm to blow over until you can kind of take that, you're under the water, you've been pressed down, you've been through a massive wave. I'm a surfer, by the way, so, sometimes you get held down, and you might have come off your board, landed on the water, got the wind knocked out of you, and get taken up by the wave, go over the falls, get pushed down, and you're out of breath, and there's a lot of foam to get through, and you're panicking, and all you want to do is you want to get to the top as fast as possible. Sometimes you have to feel the pain, you've got to experience, and there are big wave surfers who talk about the need to relax. Yep, you're in the storm. Yes, it's terrible. Divorce is ugly. It's horrible. It breaks my heart when I hear about friends who are going through it, or that it's so prevalent in our society. It's heartbreaking and it's devastating. And I'll have to say, my divorce was the worst thing, the toughest thing that I had to go through. Why? Because divorce is there, and it has a mind of its own, and it wants to destroy you. It's not happy with just causing you pain. It wants to destroy you. And many people commit suicide, and suicide was on my mind daily. I'm going to end this. I've made the worst mistake of my life. And while you're listening to me, I want to tell you, it wasn't my fault. It was a decision made by the other party. But you need to wait. You need to wait it out. Wade this out. In the midst of the turmoil, under the wave, wanting to get to the top, wanting it all to resolve, take a deep breath and just relax. Okay, so that's part one of this 20-minute episode. You want to listen to more of it, I'll continue with part two. So we'll roll out, and at this point in time, I'm just going to pray a quick prayer, And Father, for those out there who are listening to this message, who may be experiencing the threat of divorce or are going through a divorce, I want to thank you that you are close, you're closer than a brother, that you will not deny anybody that cries out to you, that is asking for your help, that you have love for us that we cannot fathom, that we cannot be separated from your love. So I just pray right now in the name of Jesus that you will come alongside the listeners and that you will reveal yourself and reveal your love and reveal your love for the brokenhearted. This is the Real Man Speaks channel. Wishing you a great day.